Hi, everyone. So today I'm going to be talking about should you start part-time with a virtual assistant? We get asked about this quite a bit. I think the underlying fear that clients have with this one is that they might not have enough work for a virtual assistant. That's usually not true if you are in a position where you are feeling a bit overwhelmed in terms of your workload and starting to have that feeling that there are not enough hours in the day to get all your work done. That's often why people call us, is because they're starting to feel that and get very stressed by it. So it's likely actually that you do need a virtual assistant if you are feeling like that. And very few businesses do not have that problem unless you are hugely systemized and don't require very many manual processes in your business. Then many of us do get bogged down with repeat and tedious tasks and tasks that could probably be done by someone else if they were switched on. So lots of people have this idea they might need a virtual assistant, but they're very worried that starting with a virtual assistant full-time is too much for them. And that is absolutely fine. We understand that. What the vast majority of our clients do, probably over 90% of our clients, is they start small, part-time, with a view to build up over time. And as long as that expectation is set with the virtual assistant in advance, that's good. And as long as you keep strong communication around that, you shouldn't have any issues there. So what does that look like from a practical perspective? Starting with a virtual assistant part-time. It could be 2 hours a day. That's about 10 hours a week. So if you're hiring virtual assistants from around £3 an hour, then that's going to look like £30 a week, or maybe between £120, £150 a month, just in terms of your budget. Bear that in mind. So very affordable for a lot of us and a relatively low stress place to start. Now, I wouldn't recommend going any lower than this. I think if you're going much lower than 2 hours a day or 10 hours a week, then you're not really in flow with your virtual assistant. You're not pushing yourself to delegate enough. They might get bored. They're not being paid enough. They've not got enough work. They're going to be looking for other things, etc. So it does need to be a minimum where they feel engaged. They feel like they do have things to do. And if the intention is to ramp them up and have them take on more work over time, then do make sure that you're continuing to do that so that you don't get stuck in that place of them just having a little dribble of work. Starting with about 2 hours a day can often represent manageable delegation for an entrepreneur. So that's the good news. A lot of people feel that it's too overwhelming to delegate to a virtual assistant 6-8 hours a day starting the next day. That's too big for them. I can do it myself. I can only do it because I practiced a lot and I teamwork and I leverage my team. But most people cannot do that. So it's a lot more manageable to say, right, 10 hours a week, 2 hours a day, I can find a way to delegate that to a virtual assistant. And having that accountability to delegate more and more over time is really important. As your virtual assistant's day fills up, they'll have a greater variety of tasks, they'll have more to do, they'll be learning more across the business. If your communication is good with them, they'll also see very directly that they are supporting you and taking stress off you and making things easier for you and allowing you to move forward, which for the right virtual assistant will be quite inspiring as well. So bear that in mind, and also please do keep revisiting your day. So your day starts, let's just say it's very messy, and then you delegate something to a virtual assistant which did take up 20 minutes of that day, maybe 1 or 2 hours across the week, and then you delegate the next thing, and then you delegate the next thing, and then you delegate the next thing, and you get to a flow where the virtual assistants move working maybe 2 to 4 hours a day for you. And you get a bit comfortable because a lot of the things that you were really stressed by have moved to the virtual assistant. However, the thing is that our days will fill up with other things. This always happens whenever we transform in life. Our days fill up with other things. We might have let go of some things and new things come to us. And it's really important to sit down after that first stage when you start to feel like you are in a flow and say, what does my day look like now? Is there anything else right now that I can release to that virtual assistant? And If there's a reluctance to release them, ask yourself why there is that reluctance. What kind of virtual assistant, if it's not the first one you hired, would be able to handle it, if it's more specialist for some reason, or if it plays to strengths that they don't have, but another virtual assistant might have those strengths. And also, I think one thing that does hold us back is, do I enjoy it? Because I know with the work that I enjoyed, a lot of the creative work, I found that very difficult to let go. And what I realized was, when I did start to hire creative virtual assistants to help me with the creative work, creative talent in particular is very varied. So this person, this new person creates content in a completely different way that I would have done. And that doesn't mean it's bad. I mean, we have to collaborate and make sure I like the content, but it can be really powerful working with different content creators. And then I need to ask myself, should I be creating content at a lower level, or is it time to step up and create more impactful content? How is my time best used? And am I the strategic director of the business? Am I conducting the orchestra across all areas of the business? And can I do that better by releasing an area of the business that I enjoy to someone else who enjoys it and who runs it well? So this is slightly more advanced as you start to delegate, and we're quite happy to let go of the repeat tasks, the low admin tasks, but they become tasks that are either more critical, so we're terrified to let them go, or that are tasks that we're enjoying, so we're reluctant to let them go. And you could potentially keep them and systemize everything else in your business and continue that way, or you can ask yourself if releasing certain things accelerates you in such a way to the point where you can really be a lot more hands-off, or you can start another business, or you can revisit those friends or family or hobbies that you've been wanting to do for a while, because that's part of the challenge here. So let me just jump back to the core topic. I do tend to segue off in different directions because I'm a creative person. I can't help myself. But I was talking very specifically, should you start part-time with a virtual assistant, and saying that yes, many of our clients do, and that it can be a very good place to start, but that it is a journey, and you need to keep challenging yourself at different points in that journey to ask yourself, what's next? What would it take for that business to really run without you for the next couple of weeks, couple of months, if you pushed yourself into making that step forward? So I covered a couple of things there. I covered budget as well, and if you do want to start part-time, if the business is not in a strong cash flow position, this can also be a great budget solution. Part-time, low-cost VAs, that is a very nice combination for some of us. Sometimes it's the only way to move forward. What I would advise that you don't do is, please do not try to lock your VA by not letting them work with anyone else, but then also not giving them enough work. I have seen clients do that. They've said, I've got 2 hours a day work for you, 10 hours a week, but please don't work with anyone else because more will be coming. Don't forget that person needs to make a living. They do need to do that. So if you can't give them that work, then let them work elsewhere. Have the right agreements in place, etc. Make sure that you're comfortable with that side of things, so that the business is protected from that perspective. But in terms of giving them the freedom to work with other people, if you know that you don't have enough work for them, if you know that you can't do that right away, please don't lock them or freeze them by telling them not to work elsewhere. It's really unfair. And I've seen people do this to the extreme, where they've had no work for the virtual assistant. It's not very common, but I have seen this a couple of times. They've had no work for the virtual assistant, and they've said, I will have work for you in 2-3 months. Don't start working with anyone else in the meantime. And Filipino virtual assistants can be incredibly trusting and loyal and sweet and amazing. Certain individuals certainly can. So I'm just going to make that request. Most people will see that's very obvious why that's not okay to do that, but please don't ever do that to your VA. Don't restrict them, don't restrict their growth. Protect yourself and build resilience in your business, and I'll talk about both of these topics a lot more, but please make sure that you're not doing that. I think one of the final things that I wanted to say around this, working part-time with a virtual assistant, is that if you do only offer 2 hours a day, some virtual assistants may say no. It may not be enough work for them. Or the virtual assistant might say yes because they've got a full-time job elsewhere, and doing a couple of hours extra for you fits with them quite well because they have got a big commitment elsewhere. If that is true, be careful with whether you will be a priority for them. If they're working a full-time job and they're taking on a part-time job, especially if that part-time job is going to ramp up in future, we have often found that most virtual assistants cannot balance that well. There'll be one or two who can, but the vast majority cannot balance that well, even if they think they can. So if you know you will be ramping that virtual assistant up over time, you really need to look for somebody who's already got no commitments or only part-time commitments, or the intention of switching out of their full-time job, and that remains the intention, and they can keep on top of the workload and they prove it from day one, or the rare individual who can do both. I'd say it's extremely rare. And people do promise that they can do it. That they can be very convincing. As I've mentioned before, I've been doing this for over 8 years, and that does usually fail. I probably wouldn't make a hire in that situation today. If you do, and if you do that through us, and you want us to support you through the process and whether it's going well and whether to replace them if you don't feel it's going well, that's obviously part of what we do. But generally, I would advise against that. As I say, most people can't handle it, even if they think they can. And then finally, having just said, yes, you can start with 2 hours a day, covering off some different scenarios around that, a lot more of a sweet spot is 4 hours a day. That is, 20 hours a week in terms of the budget. That at around £3 an hour, you can pay more. I'll talk about pay in separate videos. That would be about £60 a week, £240 to £300 a month-ish. So that budget is, again, pretty affordable for people coming from countries like the UK, Europe, the US, certainly. What I would say with this is it is more attractive for a VA. The work is, there's more momentum there, there's more pay there, there's more flow. You're pushed to delegate a bit more. That's not a bad thing. This is about delegation lifestyle. This is about freedom. This is about moving forward in your business. This is a huge component to this. This is why virtual assistants are actually very interesting in the first place. This is the crux of the topic. If I call myself a virtual assistant expert, it's never just about virtual assistants. It's about delegation mindset. It's about systemization. It's about people. It's about collaboration. It's about, the letting go of the inner control freak. It's about all of those things. So final parting words, if you would like to think more about what you can delegate to a virtual assistant, especially with that view of getting from 2 hours a day to 4 hours a day, then please do download our mini essential delegation guide, 50 tasks you can delegate to a virtual assistant. And if you're ready to get started with a virtual assistant, please book in a call with us today. The links for both of those will be with this video. All right, hopefully that is helpful for you. Tomorrow's topic, I'm going to be speaking very specifically about, can a Filipino virtual assistant work business hours in a different area of the world? So can a Filipino virtual assistant work UK business hours, European business hours, US, Canadian business hours, etc.? That'll be tomorrow's topic. Signing out for now. Thank you.